Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Dance Teacher Pep Talk. I am your host, Amanda, and I am so glad you are here. This is a space for dance teachers and anyone interested in teaching dance who is looking for motivation and fresh ideas. As teachers, we spend our days motivating and giving pep talks to our students, and now this podcast is a pep talk just for you. We hope that it helps to ignite new ideas and even work through some deep dance related thoughts before you head into the studio. Thank you for your support, and now let's get into today's episode. Hi, everybody. Welcome to a very special episode of Dance Teacher Pep Talk. It is a very special episode because it is marking and celebrating our 1-year anniversary of launching Dance Teacher Pep Talk. And, I'm so beyond grateful. I have so many things to say on this, but I wanted to share all of that in, like I said, one very special episode. And I'll be completely honest, I have recorded this episode before, and it just didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to. It didn't pull together the thoughts and ideas that I had. So this is take 2 on that. But I think, it being the 1-year anniversary, I really wanted to talk on some big points and some bigger picture ideas, because this podcast has been so very expansive for me, and it has been such an incredible year of growth and an incredible year of learning. And I really wanted to go even deeper into that, because I think as dance teachers, this can help to serve as inspiration for others, and also to help give others that push if, you're feeling a new idea come through or an inkling of a feeling. And I really wanted to sort of share on that. So before we get deep into the conversation, I just wanted to start off by saying thank you so very much for being here. I want to thank you for your listens, for your support, for your interest, for your shares. I want to thank all the guest teachers that have been on the episodes and that I've done interviews with. Like I said, I've learned so much this year. It has been such a very important year for me, and I'm so grateful for what it was, for what it is, for what it will be. And at the end of the episode, I do have a big announcement to share, but one of those announcements is that this is going to be the last episode for a little while, and I'm not exactly sure when the return of episodes will be. Sometimes if I have the inspiration to go through a quick one, I'm going to launch it sporadically, but I'll share more at the end. But yeah, this is going to be the last one for a little bit, and I guess we'll call it the close to season 1, but there are so many awesome episodes that you can listen to from last year that will still pertain to the season that you're in when you're listening to them in that same time frame in this coming year. So whether it's preparing your dance year, preparing your syllabus, getting yourself ready for the fall start of classes, or if it's holiday ideas or things like that, my hope is that the episodes that I have already made in the past year, I hope that they will continue to inspire you through in this new year ahead. And like I said, if I ever have time to jump on with some inspiring content, I will absolutely do that. So in past episodes, I have mentioned that this podcast idea came to me just as a flood of ideas. Like I could not keep them from piling in. I opened up my notes app in my phone and I just started writing, and it was just constant. So many ideas for episodes, and so many episodes I still have yet to do, and I'm just so excited to do in the future. But it was so inspiring to me because at the time, before I had this idea for Dance Teacher Pep Talk, I'll be honest, I was in a very different state of mind and different state of life. I felt some confusion. I felt a lack of direction, a lack of inspiration, if you will. And it's funny because at the time, I was still very successful within my career. I was very successful within my life, but there was a part of me that really felt disconnected from what I was doing. And, I talk on this podcast a lot about soul searching and, deep diving into finding my purpose. And that was something that was still ongoing at the time. And I feel for myself, that's something I'm always going to be searching for and diving into, because I love to learn and I love to expand. And I think it's natural for us as humans, not even as dance teachers, to always want to be pushing ourselves forward and to understand, the next chapter or the next thing. And I was waiting for something bigger at that time. And I at times felt like I was really forcing. Like I was really like, what is it that I'm going to do that is going to put me into my purpose? Not even realizing that I was living my purpose. And so today's topics really kind of dive into purpose if you haven't gotten the idea of that just yet. But after all of that, and taking some time and taking some vacation and, all that, this idea came through. And I think that for me, taking the space created an opening for these new ideas and new inspirations to come through, because it was a time where I felt disconnected. And it was so strong of a feeling that I think I literally took a week to research podcasting, tech, and all that stuff. And then I just went for it and I just launched it. And of course, I had those instances of like, should I really do this or should I not? But at the end of the day, the feeling that I had with this podcast was so much stronger than the doubts. And that was huge. And so for me, if you feel a nudge or an inkling in any direction at all, I would say just go for it, because there has been such, like I said, such fulfillment for myself. And, when we think about, doing a podcast or things like that, some of the first questions that people ask me is like, oh, can you make money doing that? And this and that. And for me, I was like, well, yeah, you could, but that's not the first reason why I'm doing it. I really want to share. I want to open this space where dance teachers can be inspired and motivated, almost like a motivation for them as they head into the studio for that week. And for me, the mission was always motivating and supporting. And it really got me thinking about my purpose and how we identify and purpose being connected to money, because since that was a question that was coming up, it really, like I said, it really got me thinking about it. And I think so often that we feel our purpose has to do with the job that we're doing and therefore the money that we're bringing in. But I truly believe that purpose is multifaceted and there are so many layers and levels to it. I don't think there's only one purpose that we will share or serve in our life. And we'll see it in different ways and different roles. And so from some of us, we may have a job, the job brings in the money, and then we have a purpose outside of that. And for a lot of us as dance teachers, we're so lucky because we're so connected to the passion and the love and the joy that dance brings us that we're able to teach it, and we're making money at the same time doing that. So in a way, like a huge part of our purpose is also pulling in financial gains for us. And I think that's a wonderful thing. But I also know that not everybody has that. But for me, when I started doing this podcast, it was such a different sense of fulfillment. And it still is. It really was about learning. It was about growing. It was about sharing. And it really got me thinking about like, what is my purpose? Because for so long, I have connected purpose to identity. And I think that we do this a lot of the time. Like, for example, when introduced to somebody or when sharing with somebody, what it is that we do in our life or, anything like that, we're connecting our identities to our purpose. We're saying we're a dance teacher or a parent or a spouse, a significant other. We are connecting the purpose of who we are to an identity role. And of course, those identity roles serve as huge parts in our purpose. But I think we need to shift the perspective around that a little bit, because I remember even talking to my husband about this at one point where, there was like a point in our lives where we're going to parties or things like that, and it's people are trying to get into conversation, and the talking and like the subject matter just seems so surface level to me. I just felt like I wanted to go deeper. I was done with like the board talks of like, what do? What do you, everything like that. And I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but it's like, it made me really feel like, okay, yeah, I'm a dance teacher. I do those things, but that doesn't totally identify myself. Like, it doesn't really share who I am as Amanda, as a person. And it really like irked me a lot. And, my husband was just like, well, that's what people will talk about in conversation because that is what is so relevant within our life right now. And it made me think about how so much of the roles that I share, it's not about who I am, but it's about what I do within those roles and the life that I live. And so, yes, I'm a dance teacher, but my purpose within teaching dance is guiding, supporting, encouraging, nurturing. And it made me look at how I am in my other roles. And I found that so much of who I am in my other roles also are those things. I'm a nurturer as a parent, as a spouse. I want to be supportive for my friends. I want to be here to guide my daughter and all of these things. It's my purpose is not necessarily the role or the identity that is assumed by that. And it really made me realize that I was fixating on so many things about success and wanting my purpose to look like success, and how could I do something that was going to make money, and how was I going to do something that was going to propel me or like bring me to the platform that I was going to have or the voice that I was going to have. And instead, I just allowed myself to live, to open up, and to find these spaces where I was so enriched. And what I was then bringing into my dance classroom was so much more important, or so much more connected than it was before. And the presence that I had as a parent, or the presence that I had in the home, it was just so much deeper. It was so much more connected because I was aware that not everything had to be for the paycheck, or not everything had to be for the accolades and things like that. And when I was younger as a dance teacher, that was really important to me. And of course, it's still wonderful when it's received now. But for me, putting this podcast together was something so much bigger than that. And I really didn't even realize it, at the time. And the culmination of everything that this year has been, truly, I would say, is expansive, is growing, and all these things. And so, like I said, if there is that something that you feel a calling towards, and it aligns with the qualities that are important to you, or the traits that are important to you, like I said, nurturing, guiding, all those things, go for it, because it's only going to expand you further. And when you are expanded, every other element within your life is expanded too. You're expanded within your dance classroom. You're expanded within your home life. Your life is going to feel so much brighter and larger. And I have really found so much. So from going to that place of being disconnected, from going from that place of feeling like a lack of purpose, a lack of direction, I have just felt a complete sense of connection, of path, of purpose. And so that is truly why this podcast is so, so very important to me. And so I really want to talk about the opposite side of this, like the opposite side of purpose, because when I was in that state of disconnect, when I was in that state of lack of direction, I was pushing. I was really like pushing and wanting and yearning and thinking about all these things, like what can I do to do this and this and that. And like I said, what happened when I stopped, just took some time, took a vacation, that's when the idea came to me. And I think what's so important to know is that when you create the space, when you create an opening, that is when the ideas drop in. So if you're feeling like you're in a place of block, if you feel like you're in a place of, like I said, lack of direction or disconnect, see if you can take a pause, even for a day. Like just set everything aside and just really reconnect to the life that you are living and the day that you are living. Because that sometimes is when inspiration will strike. And I actually heard on a podcast recently, and it really, really struck me, is that sometimes when we're going and we're, hustling and working hard, it actually is not the best thing, because it creates this lack mindset, because it creates this idea and this feeling that we should be more, we're not enough, we need to be doing more, we need to be going, we need to be doing. And when we're doing that, it creates kind of a low vibrational state for ourselves, because it's coming from that place of lack. Because why are we doing so much? It's because we're not enough in that moment. And so that was something that really stuck with me, and something that I think that we can think about within the purpose for our dance teaching, because I think so often, we're trying to plan the best classes, we're trying to bring in the best music and things like that. We have the best of intentions. But something that has been such a huge, important part of Dance Teacher Pep Talk for me is that as a nurturer, as someone who guides, as someone who supports, if I'm not doing those things for myself, then how am I constantly giving that to others? And I do think that so many of us can connect those words to our purpose, because as dance teachers, we're all sort of here in that reason, in that mode. So asking yourself, are you giving and giving and giving and not reciprocating that for yourself? Are you not giving back to yourself? And are we always operating from this place of doing for others, setting that piece, finding that piece of music, putting that lesson plan together? How are you enriching your life? How are you bringing in the time and space that you so need to fill your cup to be able to fill others? And I know that we hear that notion a lot of the time, but it's hard. As dance teachers, we are hustling a lot of the time. We are really, really working. And we always say we're doing it for the benefit of these kids, these dancers, these young adults, whoever it is that we're teaching. But we have to remember that we need to give to ourselves as well. And so when we're thinking about our purpose, like I said, as today's big message of the day, don't allow your identities to be the main soul look of the purpose. Think about the qualities behind those identities, and you're going to look at life a lot differently. I think you're going to find more space, more time, more presence in what you're doing, instead of just being the roles that define you, and reminding yourself to give back to yourself within those roles too. Because I think we do share that in common. I think that so many of us as dance teachers, our role is to be supporters and motivators, and we need to do the same for ourselves. And so I know that I mentioned in today's episode at the beginning that this is going to be the last episode for a little while. And I'm excited to announce that the reason why is because I'm pregnant and due very soon with twins, actually. So I do feel I'm going to be busy for a bit with that. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to sit down to record very often, but when I am able to, I will. And that is because, like I said, we have all these roles in our life, role as mother, role as parent, role as spouse, role as dance teacher, whatever. And for me, it's about also that fulfillment on the other side. And this has brought me such a beautiful space of fulfillment and growth. And I'm so excited to continue learning and continue growing and to continue having this be a beautiful space for us to get inspired. And even though I know I'm going to need the time for myself right now, I know I'm going to need the time for me and my family. And I feel so good and so excited and so truly very grateful for that. And so for that reason, I'm really going to take that time and space, because I'm going to be nurturing a lot. A lot is going on. And so at the end of the day, the free time that I may have, it's going to be to nurture myself. And hey, sometimes that might be popping up on the mic here and putting together an episode, because it has inspired me. It has lit me up in my days, and I hope that it does the same for you. So what to do in this time of break before season 2 and all of that of the podcast is making sure that you're following us on the podcast platform that you love to listen to most. And that way you can get any notification of a new episode when it launches. Make sure you're following at Dance Teacher Pep Talk on Instagram, because I will share there when I can. And I'm so excited to also be able to have interviews with more teachers in the future. I absolutely love that. I learned so much, and I know that this audience learns so much as well and gets so inspired from other educators. So I'm so excited for that in the future too. So definitely keep your eye out for that. And truly, again, I just want to thank you all for being here on this journey with me through this year, because we are all looking for inspiration here. I think that's why we turn this podcast on, is we're looking for inspiration. We're looking for ideas. And there's so many ways that we can get inspired in our very own lives, even just by setting aside all of that feeling of going and doing and just knowing that when we live our lives, when we expand to the possibilities around us, we get to enrich the roles that we play so much from the life that we are living. So I want to thank you all so much again, and I'm so excited to eventually get to talk to you all soon. I hope you have a great start of your dance season. Thank you so much for your follows and your support, and we will talk soon.